to the sequoias. My favorite part is what we call the cedar grove, which is down the end, where these really large cedars are still growing, and it gives you
Good evening. Welcome to the Kent City Council meeting for Tuesday, November 16th, 2021. This is our second to the last meeting of this year. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening. If you would all rise and join me in the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Kim, would you please call the roll?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mayor Ralph.
Here.
Council President Troutner.
Here.
Councilmember Boyce.
Here.
Councilmember Fincher.
Here.
Councilmember Kaur.
Here.
Councilmember Larmer.
Here.
Councilmember Michaud.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Kim. The next item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. I do believe we have changes this evening.
Yes, we do. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Staff recommends the council remove item 11A, the executive session that was previously scheduled for this evening.
Right, thank you. Any additional changes? All right, I am not seeing any. With that, a motion would be in order to approve the agenda with the removal of item number 11.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve the agenda with those changes.
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you. We are going to move on to the next item on the agenda, which is public recognition. We have a lot of public recognition tonight, several proclamations, and then some appointments and reappointments to several boards and commissions. So I am going to start with our first proclamation, which is the Holodomor Genocide Remembrance Month proclamation. We have Val Golobordok. I'm not going to get that right, so I'm not going to try that. Well, I'm going to have you say that when you come up. If you could join us at the podium, I'm going to read the proclamation and then ask you to say a few words, please. Whereas Holodomor, or murder by starvation, was one of the most tragic historical events in the history of the Ukraine that resulted in the deaths of at least 5 million men, women, and children in the Ukraine. And whereas Holodomor was genocide committed by Soviet communist regime under the rule of Joseph Stalin against the people of Ukraine, and whereas Washington State is home to over 70,000 recent immigrants and Ukrainian heritage, making it the 5th largest Ukrainian American population in the United States. And whereas, with over 4,000 Ukrainian Americans, the city of Kent enjoys the largest Ukrainian diaspora of Washington State. And whereas Americans with Ukrainian heritage living in Kent have enriched our city through their leadership and contributions in business, academia, government, and the arts. And whereas this year marks the 88th anniversary of Holodomor genocide. And whereas the commemoration of this is meant to ensure that it will not be forgotten and that history doesn't repeat itself. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of Kent, do hereby proclaim November 2021 to be Holodomor Genocide Remembrance Month in Kent, Washington, and encourage all residents, as well as our elected representatives, to commemorate with appropriate activities designed to honor its victims and educate the future generation about the episode in the world's history. I have several copies here. Oh, sorry, Council President. I want to say thank you for bringing this proclamation to my attention. Given the size of our Ukrainian population in Kent, it's very important that we memorialize the events that happened, so as it says, that we do not allow history to repeat itself. So I'm going to present these to you, and if you'd like to say a few words, that would be
thank
wonderful.
you so much.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Madam Council President, Council members, thank you so much for your leadership, and thank you for making Kent welcoming Ukrainian community. Thousands of Ukrainians picked Kent to be their hometown. This was my hometown until 10 years ago, and I see how the city is changing, and it is becoming more thriving and better city, welcoming all. Thank you so much. This proclamation is very significant for our community because as it is written here, It's to remember victims of this genocide, but also to celebrate spirit of freedom, spirit of fight, and same spirit as we see here in the United States, and spirit of United and spirit of the city of Kent. Because of those brave men and women, Ukraine is an independent state right now, and we believe that it's going to be more and more prosperous in future. And thank you for your support, thank you for your friendship, and thank you for this proclamation, which means a lot for us.
Thank you so much. I can remember, and Councilmember Thomas will remember this, being in high school, and it's when we started seeing some of the first immigrants from the Ukraine coming to Kent. Councilmember Larmer as well, and I am pleased to say that our Ukrainian population has grown and prospered over the years and is an extremely important part of our community. So thank you so much for being here this evening and all the work that you do on behalf of the Ukrainian community here in Kent and all around the region. All right, we are going to shift a little bit from the Ukraine in Kent to space. So last week I had the honor of going down to Blue Origin and providing Audrey Powers, who, if you think back a little bit, she was the astronaut that went into space with William Shatner here on the Blue Origin flight just several weeks ago. She was in Kent visiting, doing a question and answer session, was able to go down and provide her with a proclamation as well as a key to the city. It was a surprise, and I think she truly was surprised. I do want to read this proclamation because it's a pretty amazing thing, the work that Audrey Powers is doing and the inspiration that she is providing to especially our young girls who may be considering careers in STEM and in space. So the proclamation says, whereas the city of Kent has a rich history in spaceflight heritage, which goes back to the Apollo era with the lunar rovers built by Boeing in Kent. And whereas Blue Origin was founded in Kent in 2000 and opened their new headquarters and research and development facility in January of 2020, Blue Origin continues its mission to build a road to space so our children can build a future. And whereas on October 13th, 2021, Audrey Powers, Blue Origin's Vice President of Mission and Flight Operations, flew on board the New Shepard NS-18, a suborbital space flight, which lifted off from the launch site 1 in Texas. And whereas women make up only 28% of the workforce in science, technology, engineering, and math, and men vastly outnumber women majoring in most STEM fields in college. And whereas Powers is firmly focused on diversity both as an executive sponsor of Blue Origin's new Mercury Gender Diversity Business Resource Group and as the chair of Commercial Spaceflight Federation. And whereas, as a young girl, Audrey Powers peered through a telescope looking into the vast darkness of space and imagined herself floating in a spacesuit, and that's a dream that she has now realized. And whereas Powers pursued her interest in spaceflight through childhood visits to the Smithsonian Institute, National Air and Space Museum, and by attending Purdue University, where she earned a bachelor's in science in aeronautical and astronautical engineering. And whereas as an engineer and a lawyer with more than 2 decades of experience in the aerospace industry, her experience includes working as a flight controller at NASA Mission Control, serving as an engineer for 10 years with the United Space Alliance, and working for Blue Origin since 2013. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of Kent, do hereby proclaim November 10th, 2021 to be Audrey Powers Day in the city of Kent and ask our residents to recognize and celebrate the significance of Audrey's suborbital flight as a victory for women in science, technology, engineering, and math, and inspiring confidence in other young girls and women to pursue their passion and close the STEM gap. So it was quite an honor to get to meet Audrey last week and hear a little bit about her journey, literally her journey into space. So very proud that Blue Origin calls the city of Kent home and the work that they are doing to inspire our next generation of engineers and astronauts. Excuse me. All right, we have our next proclamation, and I'm going to ask Taffy to join us up here at the podium, and I will read this and then come down and present it. Whereas in 1999, Gwendolyn Ann Smith, a transgender activist, founded Transgender Day of Remembrance in honor of Rita Hester, a transgender African-American woman who was murdered in 1998. And whereas Transgender Day of Remembrance honors the memory of transgender people whose lives were lost to senseless violence, transphobia, self-harm, and structural inequities. And whereas LGBTQIA+ organizations, community members, and allies help raise awareness on the importance of inclusion, protection, and respect for those who are transgender. Sorry. And whereas the City of Kent benefits from the diversity of its population and seeks to promote inclusion of all people as a testament to our shared values of dignity, equity, and fair treatment for everyone without regard to gender identity or expression. And whereas African American and Latina and Latinx transgender women, as well as other transgender people of color, disproportionately make up the majority of those murdered, attacked, and denied equal treatment. And whereas it is critical that the intersectional perspective and acknowledgement of systemic racism, classism, sexism, and homophobia is needed to effectively address the needs and concerns of transgender individuals and other gender nonconforming people. And whereas those lost this year and years prior deserve to be honored and remembered, their lives mattered and they will forever be missed by their friends, families, partners, and community. And individuals who identify as transgender should be acknowledged, accepted, and validated. Now, therefore, I, Dana Ralph, Mayor of Kent, do hereby proclaim November 20th, 2021 as Transgender Day of Remembrance in Kent, Washington, and commend its observance to all residents. Good to see you. Thank you. I don't know if we're shaking or something here. Thank you. I'd like to say a few words. Sure. We'll go ahead and you do this, and then we'll do a couple. We've got.
Okay. Mayor Ralph, council member, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you for recognizing the trans and gender diverse community here in Washington, specifically here in Kent. Transgender Day of Remembrance is a movement around the world that mobilizes the counter the anti-trans violence that we face every day. So in this November 20th, we want to remember and honor trans and gender diverse people whose lives were taken away from us. Here at Utopia, United Territories of Pacific Islanders Alliance, based here in Kent, truly recognizes and see the relationship that we have here in the city of Kent. And we are honored, and thank you so much for recognizing that. Thank you.
Photo, and then I want to make sure we get one with Val as well. Oh. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you. I just wanted to add a thank you for Utopia because, as we know, a lot of people have had a hard time during this pandemic, and they were one of the many organizations who was feeding people, who was helping have people with or help people with services for referrals to housing, to rental assistance. And among those who they served were often those people who have a hard time or who are kicked out of housing because of who they are. So I just wanted to say thank you for all that you guys have helped do for the residents of Kent during this time, for all of the residents of Kent.
Thank you, Council Member. All right, we are going to move on to the agenda to items number 4 and 5, and those are appointments and reappointments to the Kent Arts Commission. Just a little bit of brief history about our Arts Commission. It was founded by ordinance in 1975. The Kent Arts Commission promotes cultural programs and provides citizens citizen input to the planning of arts and cultural activities. So helps guide both our performing arts performances as well as our public art here in the city of Kent. And as an alum of the Arts Commission, it definitely holds a very special place in my heart. Brings a richness to our community that we are extremely grateful for here in the city of Kent. So this evening, I am asking the council under the consent agenda to please consider and confirm reappointments of 2 members to the Arts Commission. That's Christy Caravaglio and Hal O'Brien. And then I have 4 new appointments, Jen Treese, Countess Stekovic, Brian Ono, and Carrie French. And I know we might have a few of our members, our newest members here in the audience, and if anyone would like to either stand up and introduce themselves or come up and say a few words, we would welcome that now. And you don't have to. I don't want to put anybody on the spot. So if you are here and don't want to speak, just wave. Okay. All right. So council, those are all on your consent agenda for confirmation. So, and I want to also say that Rhonda Billerbeck here is our Rhonda, tell me your exact title. I don't want to mess it up.
Cultural Programs Manager.
Cultural Programs Manager. She's in charge of all things Arts Commission and arts here in the city of Kent. So thanks for being here tonight, Rhonda. The next item on the agenda is a reappointment to our Land Use and Planning Board, and we've got Shane Amadai that we're recommending for reappointment. And again, all of these appointments and reappointments meet the criteria set forth by council last year in the changes to our boards and commissions ordinance. The final one is an appointment to our Lodging Tax Advisory Committee, and that's Gayla Haas, the Executive Director of Kent Downtown Partnership. So bios are all in your packet, and they are all on the consent calendar for your consideration. All right, the next item we have is community events, and I'm going to look to Council President Troutner to see if you've got any community events for us.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just would like to share some events that are happening at the Acesso Showwear Center. We have Thunderbirds hockey coming up on November 20th, 24th, and November 27th. Just a reminder that tickets are available at accessoshowearcenter.com. The Tacoma Stars will have their season opener on December 11th, and the Harlem Globetrotters will be coming back to Showwear Center on January 27th. So a lot of great things happening. And tickets, again, are available at accessoshowearcenter.com. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Magical Strings Celtic Yuletide Concert is coming back to Kent December 5th, so get your tickets. We have the whole series, the whole Spotlight series is in full action, so make sure that you check the schedules online. You can go to the city website, kentwa.gov/arts. You can see the full schedule there, and you can also purchase your tickets there. So it's a Yuletide or Christmas season show that has been here, coming to Kent for many years, and so it is back. Had to skip last year, but they're back again.
All right, thank you. I also want to remind everyone, Winterfest is back this year, so we are collaborating, the City of Kent and Kent Parks Department, along with the Kent Downtown Partnership, the Lions Club, and Kent Station, have come together to provide a month full of activities in our downtown, including a tree lighting and Santa's arrival, which will be happening on Saturday, December 4th. So check out our social media and our website for a list of all of the activities that are happening starting the day after Thanksgiving. So really proud to bring Winterfest back and all the great partnerships that are going to be making it happen this year. All right, the next item on our agenda is Public Safety Report, and joining us this evening is Assistant Chief Eric Hemmen.
Hello, Madam Mayor, Madam President, and council members. Tonight I'm going to do a quick public safety report today. Chief Padilla is over at the WASPIC conference. So tonight I'm going to be presenting an award to Jesse Warmington. I'm going to give a quick update on some stats on our call volume in the patrol division this year compared to last year, and then I'm going to give a brief update on our 12-hour shifts in patrol. So I would like to start with presenting the Chief's Award of Citizen Commendation to Jesse Warmington, if Jesse can come up here. The Chief's Award of Citizen Commendation is presented to any citizen that enhances the safety of the citizens of Kent or for an outstanding contribution to the City of Kent or the Kent Police Department. So today, Jesse is being recognized for outstanding contribution to the Kent Police Department. And I'm going to read the award real quick. Jesse Warmington took over as head of the Kent Police Spouses Group in December of 2014. She dedicated her free time to ensuring that our officers were well supported at home and at work for the past 7 years. Jesse organized both educational and networking events for our spouses to attend, moderated the Spouses Group Facebook page, and welcomed new members in the KPD family. She organized numerous meal trains for KPD families during hard times and supported the troops by organizing snacks for our officers during Police Week. In 2018, Jesse spent countless hours coordinating our members to support the memorial service for Kent Police Officer Diego Moreno. Jesse recently stepped down from her role after many years of selfish service to our department. Her dedication, compassion, and organization skills kept the KPD Spouses Group moving forward through some very challenging moments. Jesse is being commended tonight for her tireless commitment to the Kent Police Department. Here's your stand. So this is for you. Sure, absolutely. If you don't know, this is Ian Warmington, Jesse's spouse.
While Officer Warmington's making his way up here, I also want to point out that Jessie is a world-famous singer. She was sang the Star Spangled Banner at many concerts this year at the Puyallup Fairgrounds. So if you were in any of those shows, you may have heard Jessie sing. And she's done amazing things for our department and the families in the department. So I want to say thank you very, very much. Yes.
One more because somebody gave me another camera. Thanks, guys. Yeah.
Which one's better?
Thank you, Jessie.
Okay, and call volume in the patrol division has been up and down since January of 2020. At the beginning of 2020, our call volume was higher than it's ever been before. COVID started, it came down. Over the last 5 months, we've seen a marked increase in how many calls we're getting in our patrol division. Right now, over the last 5 months, we've averaged about 7,800 calls per month. In the patrol division, I have 60 officers, and at any one time during the day, we have 30 officers at a time, or 30 officers during the day, so 15 at a time. 60% of our patrol calls are handled by our day shift staff, so it averages out to be about 154 incidents that they go to every day. Most of those calls they go to are single officer calls. They take case reports for what happened the night prior. And then 40% of our patrol calls are handled by our graveyard staff. Most of those calls are 2 to 4 officer calls. These are more in progress. And so they take on average about 103 incidents a day, which is about 8.5 calls per officer. But each one of those calls, like I said, take 2 to 4 officers. So they're busier on graveyard than day shift, but it's just a different kind of call volume. The 12-hour shifts, back in October, we had to go to 12-hour shifts in patrol. Our staffing numbers were down and we just needed more officers at any one time on the street. What that meant was that we had to take, we used to run with six crews per day on 4 10-hour shifts. We had to knock that down to 2 shifts per side. So we have a 06 to an 18 and an 18 to the 06. And then in between, at those changeover times, we have our traffic officers and our canines that kind of fill those roles so we don't have nobody in the city. Right now, the 12s have helped us a lot because we average about 9 to 15 officers working on the street at any time of the day. Before we went to 12s, we were sometimes we're down to 5 officers, up to about 13. So we have seen more officers out on the street. We have split the city to an east side and a west side, and the 94th Avenue South is our dividing line. Because each shift has 2 sergeants and 2 crews, one with 7 officers and one with 8. And I've split them so you have a West Sergeant and his 7 people work for him. And then we have the East Sergeant that has either 7 or 8 that work for him, and they stay together as a group. And then in the 6-month rotation, at least 3 months of that will be on the east side, and then 3 months will be on the west side. I'm moving the officers around a little bit just so they see more of the city, and they see our King 5, our downtown core, is really got the most case reports. And so we like to move it around a little bit so it's not just one crew that gets a lot of work. So it's been a month and a half since we started. Our staffing numbers are better. We have more officers out there. They're handling more calls. We have made some simple changes to the shift to help out, but any major changes, we're going to wait for a 3 to 6 month evaluation period just to see how it all goes. 1 month and a half is not enough time, so we just need some time on the 12s to see before we make any changes, if we make any changes. So that is my report tonight. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Councilmember Core.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Assistant Chief, again for the report. Quick question. Do we have any updates on hiring? And the second one, the type of calls. Do you kind of have an idea what type of calls are up?
I do, and Chief Padilla has a whole year-end report on the crimes and what's up and what's down that he wants to present the next time he sees you all. He wanted me to leave that to him because he's got this whole thing planned out. So, and what was your first question?
Hiring.
The hiring. So we just had 3 officers come on board November 1st that were entry level. From what I've heard from our recruiting team, we have 5 to 7 laterals that are in the process right now. And it looks like we might be, by the end of the year, we might have 5 or 6 of them given offers. So we're just waiting on that.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Assistant Chief Hemmon? All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we will move on to item number 5, which is reports from council and staff, an opportunity to hear from everyone seated up here about the work that they are doing outside of the regular committee or council meetings, making sure that Kent's voice is being represented at the regional table. I will start off. I've got a couple of things. First, a report out on Transportation Policy Board, which I chair. We had reports on the Transit Integration Report, so working, hearing about how the different transit organizations, Sound Transit, Metro, Community Transit, Pierce Transit, are all working together and making sure that folks that are using public transit have seamless integration in those organizations. We also had an update on the regional transportation plan and heard what the plan includes in areas around freight, technology, and maintenance and preservation. So actually all of those things are extremely important to the city of Kent if you think about our industrial core and the amount of freight that's moved through there, and then the need for maintenance and preservation that's driven by those activities. So informative meeting. We also wrapped up the Project Selection Task Force group. That group has been meeting at Puget Sound Regional Council since February of this last year, setting the criteria for the grants being made with federal funds, and really pleased to report we came out of that process with some great recommendations and updates, and all in all, I think that Kent will continue to fare well in those competitions. Today we had South County Area Transportation Board meeting, and we had an update from the Air Cargo Division of SeaTac Airport. Some interesting data about how through the pandemic, while passenger trips at the airport were down significantly, cargo has only gone up. That there were, through the pandemic, many passenger flights that were coming into SeaTac that had 1 or 2 or 3 people on them, where they were really being used to transport cargo in and out of SeaTac Airport. So good update there. I will close my report with just want to provide some context around some of the things. I know council has been receiving a lot of emails and phone calls, as have I, regarding the King County mandate on the vaccine requirement mandate. So when you go into a business having to show a vaccine card. I do want to make sure that we're real clear. This is a mandate coming out of King County. It is not a City of Kent mandate. The city of Kent, if you think back to the very beginning of COVID, we actually litigated the city's control or power over public health during a pandemic with the opening of the isolation and quarantine facility down on Central. And the courts did indicate that in times of an emergency, a pandemic, that the public health officers have authority to do things like buy hotels for isolation and quarantine or require vaccine mandates. So it's not something that's coming out of the city of Kent. There have been some of our neighboring cities that have passed resolutions regarding this, and it's my understanding that this body is not going to be going down that path because it would be a resolution that does not provide any teeth. We do not, as the city of Kent, have the ability to enforce or repeal a vaccine mandate. So I just wanted to sort of put that out there for folks, that this is not something that mandate is not coming from the city, and it is a King County public health mandate as opposed to a city of Kent mandate. So with that, I am going to look to my right to our Chief Administrative Officer, Derek Matheson.
All right, thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council members. Mayor mentioned earlier this is our second to last meeting of the year, and that's because we have an unusual meeting schedule in December. The council normally has a workshop and a regular meeting on the first and third Tuesday. However, by ordinance, in December, there is only a single day with a workshop and regular council meeting, and that is on the second Tuesday of December, which this year falls on December 14th. However, because it's been a couple of years since we've had committees, I wanted to point out, especially for the public, that our Operations and Public Safety Committee meetings do not move, and so those remain scheduled at 4 p.m. on the first and third Tuesdays of the month, although we often cancel that meeting because it comes very close to the holidays. So just wanted to let everyone know that for calendar planning. I also wanted to share we have a couple new employees in the administration department. Allison Anderson is our new communications and engagement supervisor. She started today and I believe will be a great addition to the communications team. And then we hired Jennifer Hyatt as a new administrative assistant too in the city clerk's office last month. She's going to staff the counter in the clerk's office as well as provide some backup to Kathy Everett. So you may see her name in connection with some of Kathy's council support duties. The rest of my written report is in your packet this evening, and due to the change to the agenda earlier, we have no executive session.
All right. Thank you. Council President Troutner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We had we had Operations and Public Safety earlier this evening. That meeting is available online if you're interested to go back and get caught up on the information we talked about. And then we also had two workshops following that with two presentations. The first was a Parks Capital Projects update. They kind of split that into two portions. The first was talking about all the accomplishments that have happened within the Parks Department in the last year and a half. So it's always really great to revisit that and see what the Parks Department has been up to, especially during a pandemic when things have been a little bit crazy. Just a few of the projects that have happened in the past year is the West Fenwick Park improvement. So for those of you that have had a chance to go up there and check out the new futsal court and the chutes and ladder feature, it's a pretty cool state-of-the-art park up there. The Kiwanis Tot Lot got improvements. Many of you continue to drive around the 4th and Willis roundabout and see all of the great updates that we have there. The Wilson Playfields have new shelters. The Mill Canyon has had trail repair. And of course, everyone has been waiting for the Riverbend driving range to open. And so that's pretty exciting. The second piece of that presentation was the park plan update for work that will be happening in the next year or so. You'll see some redevelopment of Curson Park that will add recreation value to downtown Kent, including the Lunar Rover that will be coming to that space. Panther Lake Community Park Master Plan will get an update. Also, the community garden down in Kent will get relocated and probably have a new space that they've got in mind in downtown Kent, so that will still be available to our residents. 4th and Willis Greenway, which will have landscape and art opportunities and trail connections. Springwood Park will get some reimagining, and then Saltaire Vista Park will get some renovations. And again, all of these things are going to add recreational value to our parks program and be a great place for our families to go and recreate. And then the second presentation was our Green River flood protection update. As many of you have noticed, we had a lot of rain these past few days, and the city has done a lot of improvements for flood control over the past several years. Again, all these presentations are online. There were some great maps that talk about the watershed. The lower Green River Basin is the majority of our watershed. We also talked a little bit about the Howard Hansen Dam and the downstream fish passage project that will successfully allow fish to navigate through there, something that has been in the works for a very long time. And then a lot of these projects that are happening along the Green River with flood control are funded partially by the King County Flood Control District. Not only do they help fund these projects, but it provides flood protection and salmon habitat along the Green River. So we talked a little bit about some of those projects. They were also highlighted in the Parks program. So you can see some of these things that overlap between our different departments. And again, all of these projects that happen along the Green River provide multi-benefits to not only recreation, but salmon habitat and flood control. I also sit on the Regional Transit Committee. Tomorrow we have a very important meeting where we are bringing the service guidelines that is basically Metro's 6-year plan before the Regional Transit Committee for a vote. So I'm very hopeful that we will get to have this project and this great document that we have worked really hard on the past year and a half. And then I sit on the Regional Law, Safety, and Justice Committee, and we do not meet until December. So with that, I will turn to my colleagues and see what they have been up to. And I will start with Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam President. I have not had any meetings since my last report, so I have nothing to report.
Thank you. Councilmember Kaur.
Thank you. I sit on King County Regional Domestic Violence Initiative, and we had our meeting last Tuesday. We had presentation from Washington State Domestic Violence Coalition, and the presentation was very informative, talked about economic hardships and impacts on domestic violence victims. They also talked about their legislative priorities for 2022, which includes housing, economic justice, reentry and reduced sentencing for the victims, and domestic violence prevention. I also sit on Puget Sound Clean Air Agency Advisory Council. I serve as the chair and will be meeting on Thursday. I also sit on Growth Management Planning Council. We have not had our meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Kaur. Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you, Council President. I sit on the King County Aging and Disabilities Advisory Council, and we met on the 12th, and we had a presentation from the tax work group, and this is a group in Olympia made up of legislators and advisors that are looking at updating our tax structure ahead of the next legislative session. A few interesting facts. I did not realize that our tax structure is 80 years old. We have not reevaluated how tax is assessed and collected in 80 years. They emphasize that this is not looking to increase tax revenue, but to collect it differently and at the same levels. A few interesting ideas that came out of it was replacing the B&O with a VAT tax, and I wasn't fully following that until they gave a really great example of a lemonade stand. And the idea here is that currently B&O is assessed on the $3 lemonade, but if you know it costs $1 to produce that for the lemons and the labor and everything, you're actually being taxed on $2. You're being taxed on that difference between the production and the revenue. So that's an interesting idea. And I won't go into details. There's a ton of great things that were being discussed, different options and combinations of ideas. But I will refer the public to taxworkgroup.org. There's a couple calculators. You can actually put in your personal or business information and get an estimate of what you pay today versus what a couple of the scenarios might look like. And there's also some great instructional videos, which are some of the same ones we saw in the presentation. So again, that's taxworkgroup.org. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Larmer. Councilmember Boyce.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First, I want to talk about the committee, which is Economic Community Development meeting that I chair. We had one good report that was regarding the rental houses inspection program. So I asked Kurt and team to put a copy into your box. You should take a chance and take a look at it. A lot of good things going on with a particular program. I am the vice chair on the Pick Sound City Association meeting. We haven't had a meeting since the last time we met, but I do want to remind my council that we do have an annual meeting coming up on December 1st from 6:30 to 8. If you have not signed up, please work with Kathy to sign up. And also in the process for the nomination committee for chair for servant on the committees. The cutoff was 11/4. Then on 11/19 is when the PIC nomination committee go and do the selection process. And then on 12/8, they'll make the recommendation to the board. And then on 12/15, the board will make a final approval on those particular committee's assignment. So that's all I have to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Boyce. Councilmember Thomas.
Thank you, Madam President. I serve on the Peterson Regional Fire Authority, along with Council President Troutner and Councilmember Boyce. We meet tomorrow night at 5:30, and it's via Zoom. So if you're interested in attending via Zoom, that's hard to say, it's 253-856-4300, 4300. It's the easy way to remember that. So if you want to tune in and hear the fire department is doing, you're welcome. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilmember Thomas. Councilmember Fincher.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll start with arts, and just a reminder again that the Magic Strings Celtic Yuletide Concert is coming just around the corner on December 5th, Spotlight Series. Be sure to get your tickets for that. There's a new show across the parking lot in the Centennial Gallery. So new art for you to be able to view, and remember that is free. And Public Works. Public Works, we had a great report yesterday on solid waste management, local solid waste financial assistance. So it turns out that the Department of Ecology, again, thankfully, will be wanting to give us grant money. And with that, that is one of the ways that we're able to do the recycle events that you might have been able to avail yourself to. This year we had them on Fridays, not only on Saturdays. The next grant over the 2-year period, we'll be able to have those, and not only on the single day as we did last year, and maybe possibly not even only on just the 2 days, but so that people, instead of hopefully cutting down on the illegal dumping, so we'll be able to get more opportunities for people to be able to drop off the recyclables and get those taken care of in the right way that's going to help out our community. We also had a report on the pollinator. We call them the Pollinator Gardens, but they're referring to them as the pollinator flower patches. Reason being because they take less maintenance, so the city will save money on maintenance. Hopefully you will see a difference, because right now we're getting calls from different individuals who'll say, for instance, this retention pond needs to be mowed or this field needs to be cut. And so with the pollinator gardens, pollinator patches, they do not require that maintenance. So it's estimated that the average one would need to be cut 4 times a year. This one might need to be done 1 time a year. So savings on water, less maintenance. It helps beautify the city. So it's a win all the way around. And look forward to February 1st. We're going to have a report on some of the things that we are doing in the way of climate. So what we are doing in the city of Kent to help with climate actions. We have King Conservation District, which I chair. We had our first meeting with our new executive director, and I think she's going to be really good. Also, we have the election. So we've had some good news from the state election organization, and we believe that we will be able to get The KCD, King Conservation District elections moved on to the regular ballot, which will save hundreds of thousands of dollars for the organization, which means it's taxpayer dollars. But to get that on the regular ballot, so not only will it save money, but we'll have more people who will then know about the organization and have the chance to run and represent their community on the board. And there is a Board of Supervisor spot open, or there is a Board of Supervisor spot coming up on election. So it is not open, but that will be on the next ballot. So you can go to kingcd.org and find out more information about that. And then lastly, we have the within a short period of time, within a month or so. Or the point of doing the counts was to see why are people utilizing the system? What are the issues? We know sometimes, and a high number of times, it might be drugs, mental health. And so they have figured out, too, that there are not enough detox beds. So detox beds, mental health, still big on the radar screen. So Crisis Diversion Unit had a presentation on that. And I think that is pretty much it for this month. Oh, I do have one more thing. So I was in North Carolina and had the chance to visit with the Raleigh Police Department and Kinston Police Departments. So was able to bring back some good information. I'll be talking with our assistant chief after the meeting and just comparing some of the things here, such as how they do work with their, people who are suffering mental health episodes, people who might be homeless, what are their homeless problems like, if they have one, just a variety of different issues. So good times.
Thank you, Councilmember Fincher. Lots of good information. Madam Mayor, that ends our reports.
All right. Thank you, Council President. We will move on the agenda. Item number 6 is public hearing. We do not have one this evening. Item number 7 is public comment. The public comment period is your opportunity to speak to the council and the mayor on issues that relate to the business of the city of Kent or agenda items that the council will consider at this meeting. Comments that do not relate to the business of the city of Kent are not permitted. We do allow for 3 minutes, and if when you come up, you could state your name and city of residence for the record. Kim, could you please call our speakers?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I have 3 people signed up to speak, all on crime: Lynn Sabot, David Kramer, and John Scully. So, Lynn. Yeah.
Join us up at the podium, please. Thank you.
My name is Lynn Sabot, and I'm here with my husband, Kenny. First of all, we would like to thank the City of Kent for voting not to defund the police during this difficult year. It takes great insight and character to not follow the herd, but rather put its constituents' needs above all. We are so grateful for that. I'm sure you don't hear a lot of thanks, so I wanted to start with that. Now for the reason why we and several other business owners are here tonight. My husband and I own 2 commercial lots on Central Avenue, just 1 block off of Willis Street. We've been there for over 30 years. Between our time there and Gonison's, it represents over 100 years of doing business in the city of Kent. Many years ago, when decisions were being made about the Kent Beautification Project, we longtime business owners fought to be a part of those plans. However, Old Town Kent was bypassed to develop Kent Station near the Transit and Justice Centers. Today, if you drive around the old part of Kent, a part that we are doing our business in, the only thing that really has changed, has been improved in all these years, besides work on the roads, is the increase in crime, drug dealing, and homelessness. And it's taking a massive toll on our businesses. Our tenant, Enterprise Car Rental, is relentlessly vandalized and their customers exposed to the filth and garbage across the street left from the drug out and homeless people. And speaking of solid waste, mental illness, homelessness, between the Sunstar Food Mart, the degrading Bikini Coffee Stand, and 7-Eleven, all within a short distance of our business, it looks like a toilet. Smells like a toilet, looks like a toilet, it's used as a toilet. That entire city block up to 7-Eleven from our business. Several years ago, there was a murder committed on Sar Street, which is right next to our property. Drug deals are conducted daily in plain sight. My husband was approached to see if he wanted to buy some drugs just last week. Our fences are cut and our property vandalized and stolen. It is unsafe, it is a health hazard, and it is getting worse. We business owners are here tonight to ask the City Council, the Mayor, and the Police Department to work together with us to find a resolution for this growing crisis. We can continue to hire Bubba Security, file complaints with the Health Department, and call the police every day, but we need quick and effective solutions. It's time our part of town received your attention. Some of us are working together to close another alley at great expense to us where it is at its worst, but that takes time. We also need the city's help. Our contact information is on record now. You have my email, you have my phone number. We are ready to really get down to business. Now, with winter coming, it's the rainy days, they have other places that they hide, but as soon as you have a day like today, it can go anywhere from 2 people to 25 in just a matter of minutes. So we need your help. We don't want to lose Enterprise because they have valid reasons to leave. But we've told them that we're going to come here tonight. We've got a presence here to support these complaints, and we are ready and willing to meet to find a real solution, not just us calling a complaint. Anyway, thank you for giving me a couple minutes of your time.
Thank you, Lynn.
Okay?
David Kramer.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Dave Kramer. I'm a resident of Kent, a business owner in Kent, just like everybody else here. I know many of you. Les, my father-in-law, says hello.
Hello.
Dana, congratulations on being reelected.
Thank you.
Yeah, we got a drug vagrant problem. We don't have a homeless problem. We have a drug vagrant problem. Our state legislature seems to be passing laws, to my understanding, that are only making this problem worse. A failure to prosecute even the smallest things, a failure that's demoralized police and causes them to have no reason to chase after the bad guys. All these things encourage bad and self-destructive behavior. Our family has owned and operated a business here since 1956. My son works with me now. It's 4 generations in downtown Kent. 4. We're trying to live the American dream. But these cocksuckers are ruining our neighborhood. These drug addicts, they're vagrants. And we all need to recognize them for who they are. We can't be polite and nice to them anymore. Along the alleyway between Central and Railroad, there's a constant flow of these folks. We've dealt with people defecating in our parking lot too. We had a young woman, we had an employee go out into behind our building this summer, only to encounter some man masturbating in the middle of the afternoon. Yeah, it's gross. It's horrible. We're scared. We've seen an increase in the aggressiveness of some of the people that are wandering around. There was one point where the homeless bums were like Kenny. Remember Kenny from a long time ago? Remember Kenny that slept on the sidewalk? God, what I'd give to have only Kenny back. Because these people are getting more aggressive. There's people that are looking for a fight, looking for trouble. The tagging and drug dealing things scares the life out of me. I've also witnessed well-intentioned people feeding people, downright where this woman talked about. They pull up and give people food. That's not an act of compassion. That's an act of enabling. I see that the number one item on your 2022 legislative agenda is for increased crime prevention, or what was the phrase you used? It was community safety, and I appreciate that. All I can ask you guys is to push hard in Olympia to get these laws changed so we can get rid of these people. We need to act like we can't be afraid of the repercussions of people that call themselves human rights activists and that are trying to help people like that. We can't bow down to them. We have to grab these rotten people by the scruff of their neck and send them into treatment centers. Brandy, you mentioned a moment ago that there's movement to make more of that available. I think that's great. I think that's great. We got to punish the people that are doing harm. You have to protect the people that are contributing to this community. And we need to force people into rehabilitation situations. We have to force them, not ask them, force them. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
John Scully.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Well, I received an email from you today. I'll be honest, I was upset. One person called me. We were broke into Saturday. Minor sold. But my wife and I sat in the parking lot for 2 hours waiting for somebody to clear my building. Somebody could have came out and killed us. This is a problem. Mayor, I know you well. Tony, Bill, I know you guys a long time. My sister-in-law and my wife work in my business. We're a family business. 9 years. I'm looking at moving out of Kent because of it. I live in Des Moines, but this is where my home is now. But nobody looks at it. The barber shop next to me, somebody broke in one night, took a shower in his building. This is getting bad. I had a female employee working for me last year, and I had guys coming in the alleyway by my office at 603 Central Avenue North, standing there, urinating in front of her so she could watch. This is bad. Us business owners and small business owners, we don't have a whole lot. We have what we have. It's our legacy. My business is to be handed down to my grandchildren. I don't know if we'll make it. Please help us. I don't want to hear, I love hearing officers being hired. Love it. I come from a family of police. I love hearing that. But we can't wait. We can't have people standing in the way saying, we're not going to hire police officers because this and that. We need help. There's no reason. If I have a security system that calls me at 1:47 a.m., I drive from my house 15 minutes away. I am there. I tell them on the route, please have the police there because there's an active break-in. No officer there. And we sat with a wide open door in my office that I couldn't go into because I was afraid if I went in, somebody could be injuring us. And then I locked afterwards and said, we're sitting in our car and they can come right out that door and shoot us. This is our fear. This is what we deal with. We're not quite downtown in the other end of Kent, but we're still all having the same issue. We all feel like nobody's listening to us. Bring me to the table. I'm there. I'm involved in the community in lots of areas. Bring me to the table. I will voice. I have no problem. My wife will tell you, he will not shut up. That's a good thing. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I will commit to all of you to reaching out in the next couple of days. We'll set up some time to meet with the chief, our neighborhood response team, myself, and work through some of the things that are going on, give you some insight into some of the things that we have in the works. And John, I agree with you. It's not, we can't keep waiting. There are Dave, you said it, there are things that are tying our hands, but we are working on creative solutions at the same time, and we'll continue to work on how we make sure the downtown is safe, because we want every single one of our businesses to be there and to prosper. So you have my commitment. I will be reaching out. I'm assuming that one of the three of you that spoke tonight can help me get in contact with everybody else, and we will get a meeting set up with the chief and myself, and see what we can do. Okay. All right. Thank you all for coming this evening. Appreciate it very much. Okay, we will move on to the consent calendar, the compilation of items that council has worked through over the last several of their committee meetings. I do want to also point out, and I apologize for this, on the consent calendar is also the appointment of an alternate to the Arts Commission, Ryan Olmsted. So I feel bad for not mentioning him with the list of others, and wanted to make sure to correct that. With that, I am going to look for a motion to approve consent calendar items A through R.
Madam Mayor, I move to approve consent calendar items A through R.
Second.
I'd like to say something I should have maybe signed up to say, but I felt that everything was said here. But if you all could do something for me whenever you have time. A couple weeks ago, by the way, I work and own Autotech Tire and Service on Central.
Sir, I'm going to ask that you come up to the mic. We will go ahead and give you the 3 minutes. Otherwise, no one can hear you. So if you could let me just finish this item, and then we'll go back and allow for one more comment. So we had a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving consent calendar items A through R?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much. Kim, if you could put the timer back up for us. If you could come to the microphone, state your name and city of residence for the record, we'll go ahead and allow for the additional comment.
Thank you. Yes, my name is Ari Derbedrosian. I work here in Kent, lived here in Kent. Now I live in Auburn. I work with my father, George, and hi, Kim, Mr. Komodo, Mr. Fitzpatrick. I know some of you guys. Thanks for what you guys are doing. I just wanted to mention that, a few weeks ago, on a Sunday morning, woke up early. I had to drive from Auburn to get some paperwork. And the city has done improvements. It looks beautiful. It looks like you guys are doing some stuff that I didn't know how it would turn out. I get off of 167 and I head down Willis to get towards Central, and the roundabout there's just breathtaking on a Sunday morning when it's still dark, because during the day you just see it, but at night you guys have the lights there. It looks gorgeous. It looks beautiful. When you continue through Willis, a couple hundred yards and you get to Railroad Avenue, then I was, so I had just gone through that emotion of like, wow, this is gorgeous, and I get a couple hundred yards further, and I go over the railroad tracks, and this is like at 7 a.m, and at the corner, of Railroad and Willis, there's a homeless drug party in the parking lot of 7-Eleven. Those guys, I go there every day to get something, and they're just victimized. The owners of the 7-Eleven and all the customers. You get out of your car, you're harassed. So I go through the roundabout, and I get this impression of Kent. I've been here 20 years. I've seen it change, and it's gotten worse every year. And then I get to that, and there's people with their pants down. I see butt cracks, and I see them doing stuff, dealing, and it's just a huge party there. None of them are really, they're spending whatever money that they might get from people, not on food, not on things, but they're buying cigarettes and alcohol and whatever, and they're allowed to have a party there. So this is just me. I know I have my love for for the city of Kent and the people that take care of it and the people that live in it. But for all the people that we are attracting to come to Kent, the ice rink, Kent Station, the new roundabout, and all the new buildings and places, all these people that are coming to Kent, they're forgetting the roundabout. They're forgetting Kent Station. They're forgetting everything. They're talking about, when they come home to their families, about what they saw. So if you guys could just drive on a Sunday morning from 167 to Central on Willis and tell me what you see. Or don't tell me, just see what we're dealing with every day. I could go on and go details about what's happening to our business, but Tori and Tyler Gonneson, who lost their father last year, were broken into 2 weeks ago, multiple times before and after. But that week, 2 or 3 weeks ago, 5 days in a row. Tyler found the bike that the thief he saw on camera stealing stuff from their business, saw that bike, he had forgotten, the thief forgot it, he held it, called the police, and while the police were coming, the guy showed up at that moment, tried to take the bike from him and punched Tyler. I mean, he's dealing with this business here, trying to provide a service so that everybody in Kent can come to get a boat, can come to get their radiator fixed at our shop, so that we have a door open. But I could spend hours here telling you what we've been going through, but I had trust that we have, my voice is actually not as loud as the other people I heard here that have been here for generations. So just take that drive and see what's going on here. And I thank you for you guys' time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, you guys. Thanks.
All right, we are going to move on in our agenda. Item number 9 is other business. We have 2 items under other business. The first one is our 2022 mid-biennium budget adjustment ordinance, and joining us is our finance director, Paula Painter.
Thank you, Mayor Ralph, Council President Troutner, members of City Council. This has definitely been a journey we've been on that started back on September 28th when the mayor provided you with her proposed budget, mid-biennium budget adjustment. Since then, we have had plenty of opportunities to walk through workshops, answer questions, and have some really great dialogue throughout this whole process. So thank you all for that. In the end, with this 2022 budget amendment, this will be adjusting the budget by $72.7 million. Now, I know that sounds like a big number, but like we've talked about before, there are some things that we have to count 2 or 3 times for accounting purposes and budgeting purposes. Of that, $421.3 million is what the new budget will be. Of that, almost $129 million is the general fund. Now, getting to here, through all of our discussions, there were several things that were added to the budget through that process, one of which was $500,000 for sidewalk matching, $200,000 for graffiti cleanup, and then finally, it's really not part of this specific budget because it was implemented in 2021, and that was the pre-apprentice program anew. That did get part of the third quarter budget amendment, but it was the conversations that happened during this process that made that happen. Oops, I need to go back one just here. Some of the highlights of the 2022 budget was the addition of the co-responder model, the data collection system, unfreezing 5 police officer positions, restoring several positions that were cut during the COVID-19 budget reduction, adding a litter strike team. And in addition to all of that, we did begin funding our ARPA dollars, the $28.4 million that the city will be receiving between this year and next year. So part of that is within the budget, as well as some capital expenditures. And I would be happy to take any questions.
Council, any questions? All right, Paula. I don't see any questions. So with that, a motion would be in order to adopt the 2022 mid-biennium budget adjustment ordinance.
Madam Mayor, I move to adopt the ordinance number 4419, approving the 2022 mid-biennial budget modifications.
Second.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Council President Troutner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to say thank you to Paula and her team because, again, You did an amazing job answering all of our questions, all of the directors. Many of us reached out to you, and you did a great job organizing those and making sure we had the answers that we needed to be able to come to this decision tonight. Thank you to my colleagues for bringing forward some great ideas that we actually were able to fund in this adjustment as well. So I just want to say I'm really excited about these highlights that we have here, and I am very happy to support this budget.
All right, thank you. Any additional comment? Okay, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, Council, for passing that mid-biennium budget adjustment ordinance. And thank you, Paula, and your team for all of the work. Michelle, I see you back there. Thank you so much for everything you did to prepare what feels like an endless cycle of budgets, given everything we've been through with COVID, and doing a fantastic job at answering all the questions. Thank you very much. All right, the next item we have under other business is our Kent multi-use rezone ordinance. Sam Alcorn is joining us this evening to give the presentation, but before, Sam, before you start, I'm going to turn it over to Pat Fitzpatrick to provide us with some instruction or comment regarding this process.
All right, thank you, Mayor. It's an exciting night. I'm actually going to speak to you tonight, so it doesn't happen often. So we're on agenda item 9B, which starts on page 544 of your packet. In this matter, you're being asked to consider a rezone of 4.48 acres of property located at 23703 Military Road South. And it would be rezoned from community commercial to general commercial. And a map of the site is on the screen now, and it's also in your packet. The applicant owner is Raj Singh of RJSS LLC. So just a little bit of procedure on this matter. There was an open record hearing that was held before the city's hearing examiner on September 29th. And people owning property within 300 feet of the parcel were given notice of the hearing. The property was also posted with the notice, and notice was posted in the newspaper, and it was sent to other public agencies as required by law. And our staff recommended approval on October 13th. I'm sorry, and then on October 13th, the hearing examiner issued a decision recommending that you approve the rezone. So the hearing was held before the hearing examiner, but it's here for you for consideration for final approval on this. So here's the tricky part. Because this is a rezone, this is a quasi-judicial matter. That word is hard to spit out. So typically, as a city council, you sit in a legislative capacity making policy decisions for the city, but in this matter, you're going to sit kind of like a judge. And because of that, there's a certain set of statutes that apply to what you're going to do, and it's called the Appearance of Fairness Doctrine, and it's intended to ensure that you don't have any predisposition to rule in a certain way or any conflict of interest that would influence your decision in this matter. So, to comply with that, I have a bunch of questions to ask you. I'm going to grill you under cross-examination and basically ask you if you have a conflict in a number of different ways. And so I expect the answers to this you won't have an answer because it's a negative. And then there's a question for the audience out there as well. So I'm just going to go through those real quick. If anything piques your interest, please stop me and let me know and we'll discuss it. So the first question is, do any of you have knowledge of having conducted business with the proponents or opponents of this rezone? And again, the applicant is Raj Singh of RJSS LLC. Okay, no affirmative there, so that would be a negative. The second question is, do you have any personal interest, financial or otherwise, in the outcome of this proceeding? All right. Do any of you live or own property within 300 feet of the site under consideration? I think it'd be pretty hard to live close to the site, to be honest with you. Okay. And then do you have any reason to believe that you cannot consider this matter fairly and impartially? All right. And then for the public, If there's any member of the audience that has a lawful basis to ask for the recusal of a council member due to this appearance of fairness doctrine issue, please state the name of the council member and the basis for that. And I don't see anybody in the audience. So we've established by record that there's no conflict of interest. And by the way, this is for your protection to ensure that your decision stands and is not appealable before the Superior Court. That's why we went through that whole deal. At this point, Sam Alcorn from ECD is going to do a presentation on this. And in your packet, you have the decision of the hearing examiner and some of the exhibits. It's all yours, Sam.
Good evening, Mayor Ralph, Council President, Council members. It's a pleasure to be speaking with y'all today. Again, my name is Sam Alcorn, planner with ECD here, and I was the one to review the Kent multi-use rezone, and as the planner assigned to this, I was the one to provide public notice, to review the proposal, and to offer recommendations. And so just a general summary of the proposal. Again, it's a request to rezone from community commercial to general commercial. And this property is located on Military Road by the Kent Des Moines exit off I-5. You can kind of see there's a motel to the north there, the off-ramp of the I-5 northbound lane. To the east, you have unincorporated King County area with traffic control business. The pet cemetery is actually right there. Some townhomes, some single-family homes on the east. And then to the south, some single-family housing with King County Housing Authority. When this application came in, it also had an associated environmental review application. Both of these were also given out to public comment of a notice of an application. So like Pat mentioned, mailing to a radius, publishing in the newspaper, sending to various agencies, and no community comments were provided within that comment period. For the environmental review, there's a determination of non-significance issued in September. And then also, as Pat mentioned, this was presented in a public hearing to the Kent hearing examiner, and he issued a recommendation of approval on October 13th. And just generally, Kent has mostly 5 standards for reviewing requests for rezones. The first is that the rezone is consistent with the comprehensive plan. The land use designation for this area is commercial, and so the rezone is consistent with that, and also meets a lot of the goals and policies under the comprehensive plan as well as the Midway sub-area plan. Just across the highway to the west, there's going to be the new Sound Transit station, and so the Midway sub-area plan does apply here. Also, that the proposed rezone and subsequent development would be compatible with development in the vicinity. And as I mentioned, there's quite a variety of both commercials and residential and transportation uses in the immediate vicinity. And staff and the hearing examiner thought that it was consistent with the surrounding land uses. Next, that the rezone wouldn't unduly burden the transportation system. And part of any development here is that it would be subject to transportation improvements and construction design standards. And so all of that would apply really for general commercial as opposed to community commercial. Traffic impacts are expected to be pretty minimal in their difference between the two zones. Next is that if circumstances have changed substantially since the current zoning district was established to warrant a rezone. As I mentioned before, the Sound Transit project will be going in across the street and will increase the need for businesses and commercial uses nearby. And then lastly, the proposed rezone isn't going to adversely affect health, safety, general welfare of the community, which we determined it would not. And so staff and the hearing examiner recommended approval of this Kent multi-use rezone, and I'd be happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
All right, thank you, Sam. Any questions from the council? Councilmember Larmer.
Thank you. Thanks for this and for the map and presentation. Question, what is the original intent of the community commercial zone?
Yeah, so it's kind of more of a less intense commercial zoning. So, anything you would see in like a Safeway shopping center, you're just general commercial uses for services and retail And then general commercial allows for slightly more intense uses, and you can see some of the general commercial areas in the valley. And so it just allows for generally a little bit more intense development. And the reason why this property owner requested this rezone is because they're intending to build a hotel on that. And so hotels aren't allowed in community commercial zones. Like, can you imagine, in your Safeway neighborhood shopping center, a hotel don't really belong.
Okay.
But staff thought that this proposal kind of matched up with the surrounding land uses and the proximity to the highway exit.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, Councilmember Michaud.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Sam, can you tell us which properties are within 300 feet that got that notice?
It's pretty much the ones that you see up on the screen there is around 300 feet. And so it would be the homes there on the south and to the east, probably the motel owner to the north. I think anywhere to the west of the highway would probably be out of that zone. But there was public notice posted on a board on site, so anyone driving by would definitely see it too, as well as published in the Kent Reporter.
All right, any other questions for Sam? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, a motion would be in order regarding the Kent multi-use rezone ordinance.
I don't know where my glasses went, so we're going to try. Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 4420, approving the Kent multi-rezone application for CC, Community Commercial, to GC, General Commercial, and accepting the findings, conclusion, and recommendation of the hearing examiner on the Kent multi-use rezone application.
Second.
All right, there is a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, that brings us to the end of other business. Item number 10 is bids. We do not have any this evening. As we talked about earlier in the meeting, the executive session has been removed from the agenda, so that brings us down to adjournment. Thank you all for a great meeting, our audience participation, all of the hard things we had to listen to tonight, but also the very important things that we heard from our business community. Council will not be reconvening until after the Thanksgiving holiday. You'll have an operations meeting the first week, and then as our Chief Administrative Officer, Derek Matheson, indicated, the only council meeting in December will be that second Tuesday. So with that, happy Thanksgiving to everyone, and we are adjourned.